So first of all, thank you very much to Nicholas for actually inviting me to give this talk. I just want to say right at the start, you'll have noticed that there's one of me. I don't have a pseudonym. My husband, Chris Smart, is actually at the Distillery right now. We are T-minus 2 weeks off the launch of our first gin, and for any of you who've done that, you will know that you get a lot of unforeseens right at the last minute. So unfortunately, he's not with us today, but he sends his regards. And I'll be on the phone to him at lunchtime, so if you see me do that, you'll know we're talking about our gin. So what Nicholas asked me to do today is not to talk about our gin per se, but actually to talk about the launch of a distillery and what was involved and some of our learnings from that process, and there were a lot of learnings. So just a little bit of background. I actually started life as an academic. I am a biotechnologist and a fermentation scientist, and I spent 20 years as an academic, and I did a few things, founding the National Brewing and Distilling Library at Oxford Brookes being one of them, and that was actually quite key to the basis of this distillery and where our inspiration came from, and more of that in a few moments. And the second piece was actually around the fact that because I was a scientist, I was working very, very closely with quite a number of organizations, and ultimately one of them decided to invite me to be the chief brewer of their company. And the company was called S.A.B. Miller, and you may know S.A.B. Miller from brands such as Peroni and Pilsner Urquell and various other very fine brands. My husband actually started at Cadbury's. He was an innovation scientist in the chocolate side of the division, but he then moved into academia, and from academia joined Camden BRI as the head of brewing sciences, and he was working on projects helping small and large organizations. So we had a kind of parallel track, I suppose, and it was always going to end up in this distillery one way or another. So we had a sort of turning point before Christmas 2016 when an acquisition was formally agreed between AB InBev and SAB Miller. And this meant that over the Christmas period, I had to think really about what would happen actually if I was no longer in the combined company. And at the end of the Christmas period, I decided that it was going to be a really great idea for me to study distilling, and I went about going and doing the examinations with the Wine and Spirits Education Trust so that I really had a good feel for what a great spirit should taste like, to actually doing the diploma in distilling alongside my husband from the Institute of Brewing and Distilling. And the diploma in distilling is a 3-course examination which they recommend you do over 3 years. We decided, we kind of egged each other on in a pub, and in fact that was the view that we were looking at the top there with the sort of fireplace in our local pub. We egged each other on to do all 3 in the same year. And I tell you what, that was very tough, but it was extremely worthwhile. So that was a bit of pressure in the examinations, by the way. It's the only time I've ever sat next to my husband doing an examination thinking, I wonder if he's actually going to beat me. So we weren't competitive. We actually helped each other, but I'm delighted to say we came out with exactly the same grade. So there's never been one-upmanship in the distillery as a consequence. So we decided that come the point of change of control, we would set up a distillery. And actually, I ended up staying with the combined business for 12 months to help with integration. But at the end of that process, I left the combined business on the 30th of September 2017. And on the 1st of October, we opened the doors to the facility of our distillery. And that was the most daunting day ever. It was a Saturday. And we discovered we didn't actually have a toilet roll holder, never mind anything else. So there were some basics that we had to get right over that very first weekend. The decision to commit was very difficult in the sense that we decided that we were going to create a family distillery. And what this means is that it's actually going to be your savings that you're going to put on the line. But actually, that decision turned out to be a superb decision, and we are really, really delighted with where we are right now, some 9 months later. So the first thing was really to understand what the vision of our distillery was going to be. And the very first question was this idea of a family business. My husband and I have 2 daughters. They're both at university. They have some expertise in trialling of different cocktails, which we found extremely interesting to hear about. But they also are, if you like, our harshest critics, which is also very good. And it really is about them that we are actually doing this, because this is an opportunity for them further down the track to be part of the business if they really want to. So right from the get-go, we've involved them in every decision that they have been interested in being involved in. And actually, branding was one of the main decision points where they were really engaged. The other thing is that we really wanted to have some key principles around what we were going to do. So we were always going to produce spirits that were of the highest possible quality, using the best possible ingredients that we could get. And the principles were that we would actually let the flavor and also the aromas of these spirits really speak for themselves, but we actually had to be in the most classic packaging, the most beautiful designs possible. We really want our spirits to be admired for their efficacy, but also for the beauty when you see them. The other thing was that because I had been involved in the founding of a National Brewing Library, with Distilling also being there, and because this library is the preeminent collection of historical works on all brewing and spirits in the UK, and because I'm a bit of a geeky collector of brewing and distilling literature, I actually had some wonderful old recipes which I really wanted to try. And so therefore, armed with this kind of combination of the idea of us wanting to be able to bring back heritage drinks to the future and really share them with modern day consumers was really quite key. The other thing is we always wanted to have our brand promise be based on a strong technical truth. If we said our spirits do something, then they really need to do that, and we need to be able to back that up. And the other thing, and the final thing, I suppose, is that we really wanted to make our packaged spirits beautiful and stylish. And if you've seen me draw ever, you'll know that I was not the right person to be able to create that image. I may be able to distill, and I may know a little bit about science, but certainly I would need some help in that regard. There's not just the idea that you have to train in order to understand the principles of distilling. You also need to be licensed to distill. And so therefore we found ourselves in very close cooperation with HMRC, which was a fascinating undertaking, just about on every level. We got to know our HMRC representatives really well. In fact, they used to spend a considerable time in the distillery talking to us. You have to have a number of different licenses, a trade facility warehouse approval number so that you can hold alcohol without paying duty. This is for your intake, but also for a product which is not ultimately finished. A rectifier license, although if you choose to, you don't have to do that. You can go for a compounder license, but we wanted a rectifier license to allow you to rectify GNS if that's the route you're going to go down. A distilling license if you're going to produce alcohol in the first place. You cannot just have a rectification license without a distilling license if you want to go from grain, for example. An excise warehouse keeper certificate, which actually is a very important monthly submission you need to do in order to make sure that HMRC knows more about you than you know about yourself, and what you're doing with all of the alcohol that you have coming in and going out and the losses. It's really very important. And then finally, an alcohol wholesaler registration scheme, which allows you to wholesale your gin to other organisations. You don't just need that, you need a license to thrill. This is the license to be able to sell alcohol to consumers at fairs, fetes, etc., which means you need a personal license. So again, my husband and I found ourselves in an examination room, undertaking examinations to say that we were actually fit to be able to serve alcohol to consumers at various different events. Once we'd had those examinations, actually my husband beat me by 1 point on that, which is a bone of contention between the two of us. We had personal DBS checks, And then the council had to actually grant us individual personal licenses. So now we're licensed to Thrill, you'll be very pleased to know. And when we launch our gin, we will be able to sell alcohol at various events, 50 events each, actually, and you can't do more than 10 events in the same premises, which means that when the distillery is actually selling alcohol ultimately, we'll need another one for that premise too. So now we have a lot of licenses. Actually, you have to keep them available should anyone ever want to check them. So framing is a good idea, and we found ourselves being the recipient of Amazon frames, which really we never thought we would, but there you go. The next thing that we had to get right was the label preparation. You have to have a duty stamp and a barcode. And getting a duty stamp is actually a complex process. You can either have it electronically or as a stamp. You can't have the two, so you have to make a very clear decision early what you're going to do. And the stamp is about your distillery, not about the individual products. But the barcode is about the individual products, and you can buy them at a fantastic rate. You can buy 1,000 at a time, which is a bit of pressure, because it means you need 1,000 different SKUs in order to be able to justify that purchase, but never mind. And I'm so delighted. The first one on our list has the number at the end, 007, which we actually think is really, it's a great sign. So the duty stamp is here in pink, and the barcode you see at the bottom. You'll also see another couple of things. Widely recycled for our packaging. You actually need to be able to connect with the owners of these different tags and icons, and you have to license them. You can't just use them and plonk them on. The Drink Aware symbol, if you actually want to be part of Drink Aware and promote responsible drinking and be able to use the iconography that sits around that, you actually need, very important, to license that. And what you put here on your packaging and what you put on the website are entirely different things. So you become quite knowledgeable about the different licensing agreements and how they work. You need to finance your venture. We've used our savings. You need to have insurance and more insurance, product, professional, premises. You need to insure for contractors. You need to make sure you have the right workwear for contractors, hard hats, high vis, all the rest of it. These are things you have to think about well ahead of time. Then you need a premises. We decided to opt for a site which was modern, and that's because we want to actually be able to build our still portfolio as we go. And you have to decide whether to lease or buy. We decided to lease as a very pragmatic solution as an early distillery. But it's very important you have great security. HMRC will ask all of these questions of you. So if you don't have really good security, like CCTV and all the rest of it, they're going to ask you some very fierce questions about your security. So we're in a very secure site, and the CCTV is actually posted right outside our distillery. It means that we can't row too close to the window of our distillery. Otherwise, CCTV and security might see that. So it's one of the things that you need to bear in mind. We're not proud, but you know. Access and utilities are key. The utilities you need for a large still are really not domestic-style utilities. So you have to get advice on that very early on. And connectivity. We had a new build site. What that meant was we didn't have Wi-Fi. How difficult is it to get Wi-Fi at a new build site? Really hard, so start all these things early. Then we had to really organise our office layout, get our operational layout sorted out, and then get our health and safety on point for the HMRC questions. So, one of the first things that we have in our distillery is a spirit laboratory, and we worked with a fantastic company called Hoare, which are they're really top-notch. And they helped us to design, I've designed labs before as an academic, but not spirit labs, and they were absolutely fantastic. So we designed a spirit laboratory, which is where we do all of our formulation work, all of our first spirit still runs. And we have 3 very small batch stills in order to be able to do this. The twins, as they're called, these 2 on the top left here, as soon as they were unpacked, they named themselves. I want to introduce you to Tweedledum and Tweedledee. They look exactly like the images that you see of those 2 characters. And then the taller one, she's a 20-litre, and she is Alice. Now, Tweedledum and Tweedledee are where we do all of our formulations. Actually, Dum tends to be doing the Dum experiments, the ones that are a little bit wilder, and D is the one that we use in order to be able to really get to the point where we can scale up to Alice. But all three of these are working constantly, so it's really, really important that you have somewhere separate to be able to do this kind of work. It's mission critical. And then we needed our big still, and we worked with a company called Green Engineering, who actually helped us to design a kind of bespoke mini carter head, 300 litre, with an infuser basket and shell and tube condenser. She is beautiful. Let me introduce you to Clara. Clara is a little gorgeous girl. Well, she's not little compared to Tweedledum, Tweedledee, and Alice, but she is a beautiful, beautiful still. And the pictures that you can see here were taken of her when she was in Siena, being made. She was getting some nice sun while we were working very hard preparing for her. Of course, we had to come up with a name for the distillery, and that's actually harder than you think. We're based in Surrey, and we really wanted something that really resonated with some of the principles that we wanted to apply, using copper stills, actually having that resonance around the history of Surrey and the locality in which we found ourselves. And we worked with this fantastic company called Brand New Creation, and I know Tony's here, and I think some of his, Tony's at the back over there, and some of his colleagues are also here. They were absolutely brilliant. They spent a day with us in a pub. It was a great day. We really enjoyed ourselves, listening to who we were, what it was that we wanted to achieve, and they came back with the most amazing idea of calling ourselves the Surrey Copper. Now, that might sound really obvious now, and of course it almost is, but actually the Surrey Copper was a local hero in our village of Shea, a local hero who actually had broken up a sheep stealing ring that was operating in the pub and the local environs, and this local hero was quite revered in our village, and it just hadn't occurred to us to put all of this together about this historical story and what we wanted to achieve. And they did this fantastic job. But look at this amazing, amazing logo that they created. You can see the still in the center. You can see the botanicals arranged around it that we're actually going to use in our first recipe. And you can also see the established in 2017, because we hope this is a family business that actually stays beyond my retirement and actually really stays for more than one generation. So we really wanted to have that historical feel, but also notice how it resonates with what you typically see on the spine of old books. If you look at the top of old books, you very often see a crest-like structure, and this is really reminiscent of that. And of course, it's come out in copper foil. It's truly beautiful. We absolutely love this. You should not fall in love with your own branding, but I have, and I'm very sorry. So, you have to communicate your existence as a new organization. You have to create a website, and now you have GDPR to cope with, which means that you have to be very careful about any aspect of data protection and actually sharing the cookie piece around your website. Not something you would have had to have worried about 12 months ago, but you do now. As of the 25th of May, you have to have a policy, and you have to actually at least share elements of that policy on your website. Social media, you have to have a presence. We use Facebook. Our daughters use Instagram. We're not allowed to use Instagram because we'll see what it is our daughters are actually posting. So now, of course, we've had to get into Instagram and understand how to use it. Fantastic. This generation can tell us what we need to do, so that's awesome. Press releases, you need a very, very good PR company who will actually really push your press releases in the right direction and do what it is that you would like to have done. And we were really lucky with Brand New Creation in that regard. They linked us to a fantastic press agency. And you have to have launch events. No one's going to know you're there. They're not going to know about your gin until you actually have a launch event. And ours is T-minus 2 weeks from today. So I am slightly scared, very nervous, very excited, and keeping just fingers and toes and everything crossed. It's so important that you actually network. You see, this is my third Ginposium, and every time I've been here, I've learnt something new. And I will keep coming to these until Nicholas bans me, because I want to know what's new and upcoming. When you're a family distiller, you don't necessarily have the time to actually keep on point with everything that's coming out, and that's what this does. So thank you so much to the Gin Guild. You've actually been really informative and kept us informed of everything that's happening. And you need to maintain the relationships in this room because this is your peer group, right? These are the people that will help you in times of trouble and need, but they're also the people that you can learn from as well. When they do great things, I always want to celebrate the great things that all of you are doing. I think it's fantastic. And frankly, the gin community is one of the top communities in the world as far as I'm concerned. So whenever you have a success, I'll be the first to celebrate that with you and congratulate you. So the final thing I want to say is that if you set up a distillery on your own, don't think you're going to stay on your own for long. You have a series of different colleagues around partner organizations that you are going to rely on. These are the people that are going to help you all the way through. So Nude, Green Engineering, we've got Briggs in the audience. I don't know if Beacon Commodities are in the audience. I haven't had a chance to see if they are. How are you, Tommy? Good to see you. These people, and if I've forgotten someone, I'm so sorry, but I don't think I've forgotten anyone on this chart. Every single one of these organizations has pulled out the stops for us, and we are so very, very grateful. And some of them are here, so please do go up and say hi to them, because they're responsible for the fact that I'm standing here and giving a talk. So enjoy your coffee. Thank you very much for your very kind attention.